Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
All right, we are back for another episode of Game Over Calgary. We are fresh from watching the Flames lose what was arguably one of the worst games, at least I've seen from the team this season, falling to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a 6-2 loss to end what was just a nightmare of a road trip for the Flames just in general. My name is Matt DeMille, and I am one of three hosts for the Game Over Calgary channel. You're going to be listening to me solo the stream tonight. This is the first time I'm doing it, so please bear with me if it's a bit of a mess tonight. Again, this is uncharted territory for myself, so I'm so happy that everybody's here to join me and talk about what was just such a tough game to watch tonight. Of course, since I am solo tonight, if anybody wants to speak up in the chat to help me out and start getting some great conversation going, feel free to just comment in the chat. I'm happy to talk about what we just saw. I'm sure, like myself, there are many of you in the chat tonight that are wanting to vent, share your frustration, and just anything in general about the Flames and what today's game was. Right off the bat, as I said, not a great game, not a fantastic game, not a semi-decent game from the Flames tonight. It was, to cut straight to the point, absolutely brutal. Again, as I said, Flames dropped tonight's game 6-2 in their second of two meetings in the regular season against the Penguins. And right off the bat, I thought tonight's start, the Flames looked pretty good. I think their first was definitely the best period the team put together tonight. I think you could also say maybe the last five of the third was good, but by that point the game was the game was done completely. So I think the team started pretty good tonight in the sense that they had their chances. They were kind of in it in the first 10 to 12 minutes, and I think they were arguably the better of the two teams. And I think the backbreaker for the Flames came in the form of Alex Nedeljkovic, which is the Penguins' starting goaltender. First of all, Martin Pospisil rings the post within the first 10 minutes of the game off an empty net. So that would have been a quick 1-0 start for the Flames. And then one of the nicer saves I've seen this season, again, Nedeljkovic just robbing Rasmus Andersson off a kind of shot that went off the backboards behind the net right to Anderson on the far side. Again, I would say right there is the straw that broke the camel's back, in the sense that you can't really what could have been a 2-0 lead for the Flames, and after 20 a 2-1 lead for the Flames ended up being a 1-0. The Flames were trailing 1-0 by one, and really just a misfortunate kind of period that I would say snowballed into just an absolute disgrace of a game. To Kai number one, who's always in the chat, appreciate you jumping out again tonight. As you said, we're a disgrace with the crying emoji. I couldn't agree more. Can't even beat these incredibly bad teams. Yes, absolutely. Especially considering what the Flames had managed to do on the road trip their homestand prior to this road trip. And I'll dive into it a little bit later in the show, but I'm going to say right off the bat, starting things off, if the Flames are going to want to be a playoff team, and in all likeliness, if they are to be a playoff team, they're going to be that fringe playoff team in the wild card spot, maybe the third place in the Pacific Division. And these are kind of the road trips that are going to make or break their chances at making the playoffs. You think about who they just beat at home with the likes of the Rangers, the Predators, the Islanders, and the Wild when they went 4-0 in their homestand. I think the order was off, but those were the four teams that the Flames knocked off and picked up 8 of 8 points that put them in a pretty good spot heading into the road trip. And again, the Rangers and Wild are, I would say, two of the better teams in this league. Maybe not the Preds and the Islanders, but we pulled off some pretty big wins while at home. We packed everything up, said, all right, let's head out east, take on 4 teams that are nowhere near the kind of level caliber the Rangers and the Wild are in. I believe it was, well, the Jackets last night, the Penguins tonight, the Red Wings, and the Senators. So if the Flames are going to want to be a playoff team, those are teams that you need to be taking 2 points from. And instead, they come home after 4 games with an 0-3-1 record. And I don't know how the rest of the season is going to shape up. I'm not I don't predict the future. I don't know what the rest of the regular season is going to be in store. But I will say, if the Flames are going to be a playoff team and the Flames are going to want to make the playoffs, this road trip that just ended, we're going to look back on it. And if the Flames miss the playoffs, I'm willing to bet a reason why they missed the playoffs is because of this road trip here. The fact that they play 4 teams that are most likely not going to make the playoffs this year. They're going to be contending for a lottery pick. And we go 0-3-1. We pick up 1 of 8 points on the road. And again, I think this is the type of road trip that we're going to look back on and realize this has the potential to be a reason why the Flames don't make the playoffs, if that's what we want to see from the team. But I'm kind of dabbling into the first period of tonight's show. But before we get any deeper into the show, I just want to shout out our flagship show on the Game Over Network, which is Hyperdrive Hockey. All things across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. Where you can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the @Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at the Game Over Network. At thegameovernetwork.com. Really great stuff coming out from that group. I know I tune in every time a new episode drops, and I definitely think everybody else should too, and show your support to them because they are doing some really great stuff. And one day I hope to jump on the show as well as a guest too. So if that can happen, I would definitely love to. But again, check out our flagship show. Now on to period 1. My big takeaway from tonight's game is kind of what I just went on a bit of a rant about, and that's the Flames, what I like to call their road woes. While this road trip was just a horror story from start to end, there's not really anything that we can reflect on that we're like, okay, it wasn't that bad of a road trip. This road trip was horrendous. It was tough from first game in Ottawa to what we just saw conclude in Pittsburgh. But unfortunately, this isn't a new storyline with this team. The road woes have been there the entire season long. Now that tonight's game is concluded, I did say Flames are now 0-3-1 on the road in this 4-game road trip. But across the entire season since start of October, the Flames are now 3-6-4 in road games. And that's just something that, again, I'm going to loop back to. If the Flames are going to want to be a playoff team, which of course is what they're striving for, and where they stand right now, again, they are in a playoff spot. But if they are going to want to secure this spot that they're in, secure a spot in the postseason, they can't be dynamite at home and horrendous on the road. Something needs to change. And as I said, it hasn't been the case this season. They've been absolutely horrible while on the road, picking up only 3 wins. I believe it's, if I did the math right, 10 points out of a potential 26, which is just it's a bad look. And really something that can't happen if they want to make the playoffs. And I feel like I'm going to go around in circles here, and forgive me. This whole solo thing for me is a new thing. So bear with me if I start to go a little repetitive. But as I said, really bad road team, and it's not something that I want to keep seeing more of if we want to be a contender. And I mean, if you ask me the reasoning for it, like, it's tough to say, but I mean, obviously, playing in front of a home barn is a benefit. You know, you're kind of used to the rink, you're used to the atmosphere, that kind of thing. And of course, you can go home and get a good night's sleep in the comfort of your own home with your family versus on the road. It's just the team, that kind of stuff. But on the ice, I mean, I feel like the same kind of issues that we have been maybe complaining about for most of the season is another reason why this team has struggled on the road. And I would say special teams, which I'm not going to get into too much right now because that is another segment on today's show, as it always is, it seems. But special teams was once again atrocious by the Flames today. But again, I think it's just the overarching fact that, like, there are very big weaknesses on this team, and for just some reason on the road, whether it's all the reasons I mentioned or something completely new, defense continues to be a liability. The offense continues to struggle to produce offensively. Again, I think we got outshot. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know Pittsburgh had 44 and we were in that low 30 mark. We got outshot, outchanced, and it seemed like every Flames opportunity was what I like to call perimeter perimeter shots and approaches to the net, which really doesn't garner much opportunity in terms of a high danger scoring chance. So really disappointed with what we saw on the road. At least, thank God, the road trip is done, and the Flames are going to be heading home for, I believe it's a 2-game stand against the Blue Jackets, and I can't remember the team after that, but it is the Blue Jackets on deck next, and then they do once again go back on the road for another 2-game road trip. So we'll be back 2 at home, followed by 2 on the road. And again, the Flames are kind of in a bit of a slump right now, if you call it a slump, or if you want to just call it, this is what the Flames are going to be for a good chunk of the season. Either way, pretty abysmal road trip by the team. And tonight it just seemed like tonight was the cherry on top, with just the lack of efforts, the lack of scoring chances, the lack of goaltending, the lack of defense. I try heading into these streams to try and think of 1 or 2 positives from a game, but I just really struggled to find something from tonight's game. To kind number 1, our losing streak's going to be 6 after those home games. I mean, in the direction this team is heading, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I also, I don't want to be this guy because I feel like I'll get attacked for it. But I don't necessarily hate the idea of the skid continuing. I am a fan of the Flames, but I also am a fan of properly rebuilding and starting from the ground up. And the more we lose, the more likely that dream of mine continues. I think the game against Columbus is going to be a little bit different considering what we saw last night. Another not great performance from the team. At least they had a little bit more fight in them last night compared to tonight. I really think that this game was just pretty flat all around. As I said, I don't think the intensity was there. I think Anderson had maybe a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but besides him, I feel like that's kind of the only passion I saw come from the team tonight. And I think Columbus will be a little different, with obviously having played that game against Columbus just last night. They're going to be still familiar with each other. And again, with the Gaudreau family in the house, I think it's going to be, for sake of a better word, a special night. Not the good special, but just a special night in the Saddle Dome. And I think there's going to be a lot of desire from the Flames team to put up a strong showing in I believe it's Tuesday's game against Columbus. But I feel like now is a good time to kind of pivot into the second period of tonight's show. But before we do, I just wanted to share that Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page, and we're also working on a page through LaRouche, which is a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. And of course, more people means more content from the Game Over Network. And I mean, obviously, if you love the content we're doing now, by helping support us a little bit, this content is only going to get bigger, better, more voices, more pieces. The sky's kind of the limit if we kind of have the money to do that. So again, if you like what we're doing and you want to show us some support, obviously we are more than take a look at our kind of crowdfunding options in that sense. And of course, if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see in terms of giveaways for these kind of crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or our Discord server. And of course, our Discord server is a place that you can join the Game Over community to talk about all things hockey, all things other sports. We just about have a page for everything. And of course, if you want to chat with myself as well as my other Game Over hosts, both Conrad and Anand, that's where we're there too. So if you want to, if you can't wait for our next stream and want to chat with us between then, Discord's your best bet to join and chat with us. Now, heading on to period 2 of tonight's shows, my second kind of note that I wrote down, minus road woes, which I've been rambling on, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk about that, is, again, something that seems to be a topic in every show, and at this point is probably getting pretty repetitive, but when they keep sucking in the special teams department, we're going to keep talking about it. I hate to say it, but it's such a pivotal part in this team's weakness at this point that it's kind of hard not to talk about it. And again, tonight was no different. I mean, the Flames, we don't have to go in the past, but we all very much know how poor the Flames are on both the power play and the penalty kill. And as I said, tonight was no different. Heading into tonight's match with the Penguins, the Flames sat in the 28th position in the power penalty kill percent with a whopping 73% success rate on the penalty kill. And I'm willing to bet, I don't do percents very well off the top of my head, but I'm very willing to bet that percentage went down after tonight. Pittsburgh goes 3 for 5 on the power play. And on the other side of things, the Flames go 0 for 3 on the power play. And I'm not going to give Pittsburgh credit in this sense because they are not a good power play team. They are average at best. Their power play is sitting at 20.3%, which is good enough for 15% in the league. Not a good showing once again for the Flames in the special teams department. I feel like we can keep going around in circles about what we are doing wrong or what pairings are working well. I'm kind of at a loss of words once again. I've been saying that the Flames' kind of defensive end is not a strong point, and they started decent, and it's been just like a slow, gradual fade to being a really bad team defensively. And I don't think there's going to be a swing up in the future, or at least this season. I think this defensive core is what we're going to be seeing for the rest of the season. And in that sense, that only makes our penalty kill struggle even more. And again, tonight was the showing. I will say it is phenomenal to watch Sidney Crosby play. I'm going to be sad to be watching a league in where Sidney Crosby is no longer a part of it. But at 37 years old, the phenom Sid the Kid continues to take over games. And again, tonight was no different. I believe he had 2 assists. That's, I think, his second assist off a Ricard Raquel goal with that like blind backhand pass. I've seen him do it thousands of times in this league, and it still takes my breath away. I can't remember if that was on the power play or not, but either way, when you kind of have him as the catalyst on the power play with the guys like Letang, Karlsson, Malkin, again, it's tough to defend, but it's also really easy to score on the Flames, regardless who you have on the ice. Takai number 1 in the chat. We have to do that Sutter thing and put 5 defenders on the power play. At this point, I'm open to any kind of suggestion. I'm willing to 5 defensemen and just all crash the crease and form one big wall might be the best bet that the Flames have at this point. I like to think that guys like Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman are pretty decent penalty killers. I think they've shown in seasons past that they're both pretty strong defensive forwards, but on the penalty kill, they're very good. Tonight was not the case. I felt like every time I watched the Flames on the penalty kill, they really, they were getting outworked. They were failing to win battles. When they got the puck, they failed to get it out, and they just kept letting Pittsburgh run all over them. I'm not gonna say the goaltending. It wasn't the goaltending's fault either. I think Vladar had arguably his worst outing this season, and across the board, really hasn't been a good 2 games for the Flames net-minding group. But again, I think there's only so much a goaltender can do on the penalty kill. I think for the most part, Vladar kind of made the saves he had to. I think the first period goal is one that he's going to want back. But I don't think he's to blame, at least in terms of the Flames or the Penguins going 3 for 5 on the power play. I think that's more of an effort and a defensive weakness that is once again just really being amplified by playing these teams. And again, as I said, Pittsburgh is not really known as a good team on the power play. And again, on the other side of the ice, the Flames had 3 power play chances themselves and did nothing with it. Again, I think a lot of it stems with the Flames don't have that player that can take over a game, that has that shot that is perfect for the power play. You know, the Draisaitl's of the world, the Matthews of the world, the Stamkos. Well, I guess maybe not Stamkos at this point, but the Ovies, for example. The guys that can set up the power play. You kind of have that guy that is your go-to for a shot on the power play that has that quick enough release to put the puck in the back of the net, or you have the playmaker that is able to make that cross-crease pass, or the passes that most players can't make, that puts the team in a good scoring position. The Flames don't have that. They don't have that on the power play, let alone they have that on the team. And that just, I think, is just one of several reasons as to why the Flames power play stinks. And I feel like you can keep putting these lines in a blender and hope something sticks. But I think considering the guys that we have on this roster, I don't feel fantastic for the future of this power play either. I don't know if it's something that can be fixed with this season. I know something that both myself, Conrad, and Anand have talked about in the past is maybe doing the strategy with planting a big body in front and just trying to put pucks on net, try and get those like dirty, nitty-gritty goal line scrambles to bury pucks. I don't hate the idea of putting a guy like Adam Klapka in front of the net, letting him kind of just be a pest, a distraction, and kind of crash the net. But still, even in terms of just like breaking the puck into the offensive zone, it seems like it's a struggle for the Flames. Like, sure, it's one thing to struggle after you set the play up and you kind of get your positioning out when you're in the offensive zone and have control, but the Flames struggle to even break into the offensive zone. And again, we don't have a Johnny Gaudreau that you drop the puck off to, and he's speedy enough to just whiz by a couple forwards, and then just like that, you're in the zone. We don't have that kind of guy that is able to kind of do it all himself to get the puck in the own zone. And at this point, I've seen a lot of times where the Flames are like, let's just dump it in and see what happens. And if that's kind of the strategy in terms of trying to set up a power play, let alone find success on the power play, you're kind of just setting this team up to fail. Again, I think we're just this team's at a crossroad in the sense that they just don't really have that star player that can help set it up. But again, I feel like I don't feel like it. I know we've had these conversations just about every game this season. So I feel like this is probably a pretty good time to move on, as again, I feel like I'm just going to keep going in circles, and we really just don't want that. So special teams, once again, an issue in tonight's game with Pittsburgh, an issue in just about every game we've seen this season. And I think, like, I saw a stat on Sportsnet today that the Flames entered tonight's game with 12 goals for in the first period, which is worst in the NHL. They're second last in goals for in the second period with 16. And then they're tied for sixth in goals for in the third period with 31. Now, I obviously am not saying that the power play is the one specific cause of those low stats, at least the first and the seconds. But I just thought that was something that was something to take away in the sense that their inability to score on the power play has definitely led to a lack of scoring across the board. And I'm saying it's so funny because I'm kind of ripping apart the power play in this moment. And prior to tonight, the Flames had power play goals in the last 6 games, and I still, even during that streak, I thought there were big flaws in the power play, which is pretty funny considering that they have at least been able to generate success at least once a game on the power play. And then, as I said, I had the goals for in the first and the second period. But I also the first and second period. But I also saw, oh my goodness, I can't speak today. Also from Sportsnet, they do great stat finding that I can kind of just piggyback off and steal for the show. But in the last 21 games this season, the Flames have scored 3 goals or less. And 21 games is a lot, and I will tell you right now that tonight's game was the 25th game of the season. So 21 of their 25 games, the Flames have scored 3 or less goals, which is just shocking. And I believe 2 of their first 4 were 6-goal games. I don't know the math exactly, but the Flames just across the board haven't been able to score. And I 110% think that the power play is at least one of the causes for that. That's my rant on power plays. I feel like we're going in circles here, so I'm going to pivot into the third period of Game Over Calgary. But before I do, again, I just wanted to shout out the rest of the Game Over Calgary the Game Over Network community. If you don't know this already, the Game Over Network has markets in all 7 Canadian cities that have NHL teams. So along with Game Over Calgary, there is a Game Over Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto. So if you don't necessarily love the Flames as much, but you have maybe more of a fondness for another Canadian team, just know that there is networks or Game Over networks in all 7 Canadian markets, which means just even more content to take in. I know a big thing with the Game Over network is when 2 Canadian teams play, we do a crossover stream where we take one person from one network and the other another person from the other network, and we do a cross stream. That sounded weird. Sorry. At the start of the road trip, the Flames visited Ottawa, and we did a crossover episode for that, which was awesome. And there'll be way more to come in the future as well. So, of course, shout out. Just want to send some love to the other communities. And even tonight, if your hockey fix isn't quite satisfied after tonight's show with myself, I know the Oilers and the Avalanche are... I think they're underway right now. And after the show, Game Over Edmonton is going to be live following their post-game for their own post-game show. So obviously, I would love it if I could send you guys to them once they're done, because they do some really awesome stuff as well. Now, on to the third period of tonight's show. I talked kind of broadly with the road trip woes. I talked broadly once again with the special teams concerns. And now I'm going to get a little bit more specific, and specifically about one player from tonight's game that was a standout. I wouldn't say in a great way, but just kind of overall, like, some thoughts I wanted to share, and that is Rasmus Andersson. Now, to be very blunt with it, what has he been doing for the last fistful of games? It was a lot of fun watching him at the start of the season, where he was arguably one of the better Flames. He was scoring at a pretty high pace, and obviously the stare downs were like the best thing in the world, but we really haven't seen much of that from him lately. Actually, as a matter of fact, I will say he's got 4 points in his last 16 games. So for a guy that's been known to be a pretty offensive-heavy defenseman and somebody that's able to generate scoring chances, he hasn't been lately. And I don't know at least how the other guys feel. However, I am of the firm belief that he's been quite lackluster, and I think his performance, his quite poor performances, have been flying under the radar, and I just kind of have to call him out here. As I said, this guy is known to be a pretty offensive guy. I believe between him and Anderson, he's either PP1 or PP2 most nights. Top line pairing. And 4 points in 16 games is not something to be proud of. And as I said, I feel like this performance in a bad way is being slept on, and I kind of want to make it apparent. And not only that, like, obviously points aren't everything in this league. There are guys that come in, they're guys that come in, they're meant to play defensively. They're going to put up 5-10 points a season. But that's kind of their role, right? Versus Anderson, he's kind of, as I said, he's been known to be offensive, and he hasn't. And at the same time, he's been a defensive liability, or at least that's what I've seen from him. He's never been known to be good defensively, and this season has been no different. And as I said, I just want to make it known. It's for me, at least I think I've said it in past streams, but if we're talking about a Flames rebuild, I feel like the two guys in this team that are just like the perfect candidates for trade fodder is Anderson and Dan Vladar. We won't talk about Vladar tonight, but Anderson specifically, it's like this guy is supposed to be trade fodder. This guy's meant to be a good, I mean, by no means, if he's going to a contender, by no means is he a top pairing guy, middle six at best, but knowing his history, he's kind of a guy that will put up points for you, and he's not right now. And so he's not doing much for the Flames, and at the same time, his trade value is just tanking right now. So I just think, like, he needs to get his stuff in order here and either start putting pucks in the net or start playing defensive like a defenseman are supposed to. He's just kind of been flying under the radar for having a really bad last 16 games. He started hot, sure, but like he's just tapered off. And the funniest part about all of that, and my giant rant about him, he's still leading the Flames in points, which is also just such a warning sign. Now, I just said that, and I see the chat goes off, so I feel like I might be getting heat for it, so I'll read right now. Moose is here. Shout out to Moose as well. He's joined the last few streams, at least I've been on. I really have enjoyed some lively conversation with him, or him or her. I think the Flames have been affected by a string of bad reffing and bad luck, which has led to bad momentum. We need a major reset. Do you put our top point producers, Kadri and Hubie, together? Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm being ranty. Obviously, there has been a lot of bad puck luck go the Flames' way as well. I will say, I personally, whether it's garnered or not, whether you can agree with it or not, I will say, I don't think we can use puck luck as an excuse for the performance lately. Again, at least tonight, for sure. I definitely don't think the puck luck was against the Flames. I just think tonight was just a brutal game just to start with in general. That's something nobody on the team should be proud of. But sure, putting our top point producers, Kadri and Hubie, together, I mean, I don't hate it. At this point, there's nobody in this roster where it's like these guys have to stick together no matter what. And we've seen success between the two of them together. I mean, Huberdeau did assist Kadri's goal this afternoon or this evening. Which, I mean, I think he like kicked the puck to him or something. But they did find success in what was a very poor offensive game for the team tonight. So, I mean, I'm all for putting them together. We've seen it before, and I guess they found a little bit of success. So, like, I'm not opposed to putting those guys together again. What about Kuzmenko, 0 goals in 20 games? Yeah, that's the other one that has been... I mean, yes, I think that Kuzmenko is probably a bigger talking point than Anderson, but again, I feel like I wanted to put him on blast a little bit today, whereas we put Kuzmenko on blast before. And speaking of trade fodder as well, I definitely didn't hate the idea of... I mean, last year, Kuzmenko was pretty good with the Flames. He was producing pretty well offensively after the trade with Vancouver. And at the start of this season, I was kind of tempted to potentially signing him on a bit of a contract here, but I also didn't dislike the idea of using him as trade fodder. But 0 goals in 20 games for a guy that's known to be a sharpshooter is just something that is... other teams are going to see and laugh, right? So if there's any kind of value to come back in a trade with him, it's kind of out the window at this point until he turns something around. Moose, again, I don't think Anderson is to blame, nor Kadri. Coleman, Zari, -3 tonight. I think we should definitely shot Vladar, Kuzmenko, maybe even Kadri if we don't make the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I will say... I'm not going to go back on my Anderson rant. I said it. It's out there. I'm not going to take it away. However, is he the sole reason the Flames got ripped apart 6-2 tonight? Absolutely not. I don't really think there was a guy that I said had a phenomenal game, but there were a lot of guys tonight where I thought they had a pretty poor game. As much as I like Zari, I think he's quite the spark plug on this team and a catalyst offensively. Tonight wasn't his night. Neither was Coleman. I thought, well said, Moose. Like, both guys had a pretty rough outing tonight. Zari especially, I feel like every game he's kind of slated to put some kind of rush scoring chance together, and he just had a quiet night. I think you could say the same thing for Coronado as well. Both young guys probably had a bit of they had a rough outing, and again, I don't think Vladar was the main reason the Flames lost tonight, or I know he wasn't the main reason to the Flames lost tonight, but I mean, it didn't help. That first goal, that backhand from, I can't remember who it was, but that was one I remember watching and saying, oh yeah, that's one that he's going to want back. Edmonton needs a goalie. Skinner's already 50% on 2 shots today. Well, Takai, that put a smile on my face, so thank you for that. Yeah, I think Vladar is, I'm willing to guarantee that he is somebody that won't be on the Flames team by the end of the season. I think it would be a very poor decision on Conroy's part to keep him around. And there's nothing I have against the guy. I just think he has a lot of value for teams. He's not a bona fide starter by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he ever will, but I think he's a good 1A, 1B guy. And for the Oilers that are kind of like in a pinch for goalie, and they've been for quite a while, I don't necessarily know if I love trading within division, let alone your rivals. But I mean, a landing spot for him. I don't hate the Oilers. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head because my brain is a little bit fried today. But either way, I definitely agree with Moose in the sense that shopping Vladar, Kuzmenko, and again, I want to throw Anderson's name on that list as well. I think that one's maybe a little bit more of a what's the word I'm looking for? I think that's maybe a more of a bold take in sense of putting Anderson on the block, but I think that he would be a good option in terms of trading assets. Anderson isn't leading the Flames in points anymore. Kadri 15 points, Huberdeau 14 points, and Anderson 13 points. Okay. Yeah, you're probably pretty correct. I think Huberdeau picked up 2 points tonight, so he would have passed Anderson. Maybe I misread it and Kadri was leading the team, but I know Anderson was in the top 3. So either way, 4 points in the last 16, and he's still in the top 3. Top 3 in team points is that's a Flame stat if I have ever seen any. I agree. This road trip sucked so bad. It really did. It's not, as I said, I think looking back, this is going to be, if the Flames are going to be a fringe playoff team and they do the typical Flames thing and fall out of the playoff race in the last couple games and they're 1 or 2 points behind the last wildcard spot, I think we're going to look back on this road trip and see, this might have been the one that is the reason why the Flames don't make the playoffs. And if, based on the trajectory with them potentially being a playoff team this year. I've kind of just committed to the fact that this is kind of the Q&A segment. So I guess we're halfway through it, but before I kind of continue reading the comments with tonight's viewers, I will do my very last ad read, and then let's keep firing the questions my way. Now, as I said in every other stream before, but Game Over Calgary and the Game Over Network as a whole has merch, and there's no better way to support something you love by rocking it is clothing, which makes merch just the perfect option. And with Christmas around the corner, if you need some stocking stuffers for your family, we also have you covered from Game Over's with Game Over's apparel line, which, as I said, dropped a little bit a while ago. And we do have 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, which is currently on sale, even better for Christmas shopping, or want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through the winter, we have you covered with coffee mugs as well. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on the stream, which I will pop up right now. Take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. As I said, I actually got merch myself. I think I have this is the established tee, as you can see right here. Absolutely love it. I love how it turned out. I definitely kind of want to pick up a little bit more. I hope none of my family's watching the stream tonight, but maybe a few shirts and hoodies are headed their way for Christmas, because obviously want to rep the Game Over network, as well as these are some pretty awesome stuff. So I definitely recommend you picking up some merch of your own if you want to support us as well. Now, continuing on with the OT period, as I said, I kind of just committed to reading the comments halfway through period 3, and here we are. The weather in Calgary is terrible. The Flames should be pumped to be on the road. Wow, that I couldn't agree more. That I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I was just trying to maybe give them the benefit of the doubt in the sense that maybe they were kind of road trips are always tough, being away from family and stuff. But at the same time, you just left snowy Calgary that has feet of snow to, I mean, I don't know if you'd consider Ottawa sunny, but the East, which I hope is a little bit better than what is in Calgary. So I agree in the sense that the Flames maybe won and lucked out a little bit that they don't have to endure the minus 15, 20 weather that we're having back in Calgary. Huska has to get this team back to how we play. Major reset with the Blue Jackets. I definitely agree. I said it earlier in the show tonight. I think I believe it's Tuesday they play. I think I have the schedule up right here. But Tuesday's game, against the Blue Jackets is going to be a big one for the Flames. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of emotion with the Gaudreau family coming back to Calgary, as well as just another game against the Blue Jackets and honoring the lives of Johnny and Matty Gaudreau as well. I think that game is going to be emotional from the get-go, but I also think in terms of just the Flames and righting the ship, I think it's also going to be a pretty pivotal one in that sense. And I think it would be a good opportunity for them to kind of ride that emotion and obviously have a spirited battle with the Blue Jackets again, obviously, as well. So I think that's going to be a pretty marquee game for the Flames and one that is circled on their calendar in terms of righting the ship. What happened to the Kadri trade rumors? It seemed to die down. If the Leafs want Kadri so bad, trade him while his value is high. I don't disagree. I mean, I am not super awesome at keeping up with trade rumors on social media. I'm not surprised that Kadri's kind of on the market. And again, I also think like he's getting up there in age, unfortunately. And the Flames need to get younger. So if we can trade him for a bit of a couple assets, make the team a little bit younger, and really, really embrace the rebuild as he is one of our top point getters, I'm up for it. I feel like, at least in my perspective, there's very few guys on this team that I'm maybe committed to keeping around. So I think obviously the Wolves and the Zaris, the Coronados, Hansiks, the younger group of guys, I'm probably those are the ones that I'm wanting to keep around. Same thing with I like Weegar and Kevin Ball on the back end. Besides that, if Conroy's looking at selling, I mean, I'm happy for them to sell the store a little bit and try and make this team a little bit younger. I will say we're running at the 48-minute mark of today's show. I didn't realize I would be able to talk for 48 minutes straight, but here we are, and I'm loving every minute of it. I will flag down a few more comments if we want to throw them in, and then I'll probably call it tonight and get ready for Calgary's clash with the Blue Jackets on Tuesday. Moose is here once again. I was 70-30% on the Flames making the playoffs. Now I'm 50-50. Is it back to rebuild? I mean, good on you for having a little bit more hope in the team than I did. I don't think my percentage for the Flames making the playoffs has been higher than maybe a 30. I definitely, I think, I mean, I was all for that like 5-0 start for the team, but at the same time, I was just kind of, I've been a pessimist the entire season just because it's like you look at this roster and it's unfortunately, I don't think it's on paper, this team is one that I don't think has a chance to sniff the playoffs. And they've had a really good start, and I definitely think that that's something they have to be a pat on the back for. And as a Flames fan, I mean, I don't want to spend money to go watch a Flames game at the Dome to watch them lose. Every time I go to a game, I'm obviously wanting them to win. So there's that one part of me as a Flames fan where it's like, yeah, I'd love to see them winning. I'd love to see them in the in a playoff spot. But at the same time, there's that pessimist in me and the part of me that is thinking long term. And it's like, I would rather see maybe a bit of a more difficult season, tough to string together wins, that kind of thing. But in the long run of it, we have the potential to get some pretty high-end prospects at this year's draft. And I mean, it's the signs, there's some pretty good talent coming up, obviously, like the Cole Hoggins of the world, the Porter Martones, Michael Misas, Matthew Schaefer, that we've seen at least I saw at the CHL USA Prospects Challenge as well. So, I mean, I'm already excited about the upcoming draft, and obviously, I was never really super bought in. My bought in level for the Flames playoff were pretty low. And I'm kind of in the same boat now. I think tonight's game was maybe something that we're going to see a little bit more of in the future. I could be wrong, but all things, yeah, my buy-in level has never been very high. So I'm glad you're kind of back on the same level I am, Moose. I don't even trust us to rebuild right. We can barely make a 500 team. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You kind of have to put trust in Craig. I mean, at the time, he's made a few trades that have seemed questionable, but at the end of it, the Flames have kind of come away the winners with quite a few of them, at least lately, for sure. So I think you kind of have to put faith in him. I think he put together a really good draft last year. So I think the rebuild is starting pretty good. I think they've set the foundation pretty well, but obviously everything's kind of up in the air when with what's to come and obviously how the Flames end position wise this year too. So unfortunately there is a lot of stuff that can be messed up and may be messed up, but at the same time you kind of have to put a little bit of faith in management until we kind of see that whether something's working or not. And I think we're in a little bit of a tough spot to decide that right now. All right, last comment before we shut things down. Matt C. Huska seemed to put lines in a blender when we were winning, but is sticking with these current lines, which clearly don't work. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, it's not good for a player to be consistently mixing up the lines, right? Like having to play against a new pairing or play with a new pairing, a new line every game is a difficult thing for a player to do in the sense that they're kind of always having to juggle a new player, new line mates that play a little bit differently. So obviously, like, putting the lines in a blender when winning is something that is always a questionable thing to do. You know, I'm of the mentality, if it works, it works, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm never really a fan of putting lines in a blender when you don't need to, especially if you're winning. But at the same time, if you're losing and you're consistently mixing the lines up, I feel like that also doesn't really put the players in a position to find success. As I said, they're kind of consistently having to play with new guys that have different play styles, right? So I think there's a fine line between mixing up the lines consistently with also kind of just like, hey, let's put these lines together. I know we're in a bit of a slump, but let's see if we give these guys a handful of games to just kind of see if they can work the kinks out. And I think that's kind of what his mentality is right now. I can't say for certain, obviously, but what it kind of seems to me is like, listen, like I know things aren't going great for us right now, but at the same time, let's put these lines together. Let's do a couple rotations of it, put a couple games worth, see if something does stick, because obviously chemistry isn't something that comes right away. Sometimes it does, but more often than not, it's just kind of getting comfortable with your line mates. And as I said, if you're constantly mixing who you're playing with up, it's kind of tough to build that chemistry versus it's maybe more of like a slow burn where you start slow, but then it's like a couple games in, you kind of know, oh, so-and-so kind of plays like this, right? And it takes a couple of games to realize kind of how a player plays, right? So I think there's a fine line to be said in terms of how often you kind of have to mix up the lines. So I think, again, I can't say for certain, but I think that's kind of what Huska's perspective is like, let's put these lines down, blend them up a bit. I know we're in a bit of a slump, but like, let's just give them a couple games to work it out, see if anything works out, give them time to generate a little bit of chemistry. And if nothing kind of happens, then once again, like, let's take it back to the drawing board of sorts. I'm not a coach, but that's the way I see it. Okay, we are at the 55-minute mark, so I'm going to shut things down for tonight. Once again, I appreciate everybody, to Kai, Moose, Matt, for joining the chat. I always love getting to do some chats and catching up with you guys, and obviously you have some really great ideas and bring them to the table every night, so I'm super grateful for that. I will be back on Tuesday when the Flames take on the Blue Jackets. I might be soloing. I might be with Anand. That's up in the air, but I will guarantee you I will be there for postgame. I would love to see everybody again tonight watching to join me again. And I'm happy to talk all things Flames with you. Again, it'll be another emotional one for the Flames, but I'll be here. I hope to see you there as well. If you like the show, send it, share with your friends, family, whoever. Any support we can get is very much appreciated. And again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you all on Tuesday after the Flames and Jackets game.